Before you go off to your final project, you may want a little more information on how to organize your file structure. We started a new game so that we can create a component to modify. Since modifying a component is the only way to get to the file structure at the moment on the Game Crafter. This time I'm going to choose booklets. A booklet is like a document, only it's smaller and bound together. You can see this is a slightly more complicated process than editing some of the other components. Booklets are one of the latest things offered by the Game Crafter. So, we are in File Set B, and we're going to go down to the bottom and create a folder. I'm going to create Steam City Warfare. As I mentioned before, when you create a folder, the Game Crafter will immediately take you into it. We're going to click on File Set B so that we can go back and start grabbing files. I'm going to grab all of the files associated with Steam City Warfare, and you can just drag and drop them right onto the folder to move them in. If you want to move things up, you can also move them over the blue word, although that's a bit tricky, especially since moving it over the delete will ask you if you want to delete the file. You can also click on the file and then click on the Move This File section, choose the folder that it's going to be moved to, and then hit Move to, name a folder. This is of course a lot more complicated than just dragging and dropping the files, but if the file isn't in the same folder as the folder you're trying to move it to, and you aren't moving very many files, this may be the way to go. If you do need to move a lot of files from a folder to a folder, but the folder that you want to move them to isn't in the folder that you're trying to move the files from, it might be a good idea to temporarily put that folder in the folder with the files to make this process faster. Now, the file structure can only show 25 items at a time. So you have the next page and previous page options. As you move files, it will not automatically move files from the next page to the current page, and so you may end up with a situation where you can't get to the files even though they should have moved up. That being the case, you can refresh or click to the next page and click back. But as you can see, attempting to drag a file further up than the current window shows can be problematic. And it doesn't always move the file where you want it to. This is probably a good situation to go the long route, but as you can see, if your pointer is over the folder, even if the file isn't, it can go in. Now from here it can get a bit tricky, because you see I have a number of files on the next page, but no access to that folder. One thing that I can do is create a second folder for moving all of the files that I don't currently want, it is a bit time consuming, but it's a way to speed the process along. It does, however, mean moving the files back to the root folder when you're done, unless you just want to organize all of your files at once. For instance, I could have created a folder for my logos, a folder for the Mother's Day files, and just sorted everything in one go. That way I wouldn't have to go back and move the files again later. Remember that organizing the files, at least the files that you are using for your final project, is part of the grade for the final assignment. So these are skills that you're going to need, however time-consuming the process may be. If I just moved the logos to the temp file, there probably would have been nothing on the second page when I went to look. Once I have all of my files into the Steam City Warfare folder, I'll go in and organize them into subfolders. I think you get the idea of what I'm doing here, so I'm probably going to clip the video and come back to you when I'm finished. As you can see, now that I've clicked next, having moved enough files that there aren't 25 in the current folder, there's nothing on the second page, and also no longer an option to just go back. So I could click root and then go back into file set B, or I could close out and attempt to edit the image again. This time I'm going to click root and go back to file set B. I have a few more files to move. Then we can get to organizing the files inside the folder. Now, we're going to have to create a few new folders. One is going to be trash images. I'll just call it trash. But this time I'm going to create several folders so that I don't run into the same problem I did last time. I know I'm going to want shop page images, which will have a folder for action shots. So from here I can probably start moving files. The shop ad and the game cover are both shop images. Airship movement and really most of these pictures are pictures from the rules document, and we don't need them here, but we may want them later, so I'll move them into a trash folder for now, just to keep them out of the way. Now I need the board halves to put together the board, which you've already done, but I don't need the total board image. The rules and the board halves can stay in the main folder. If it gets stuck on your pointer, just click on the folder rather than letting it go, and it should move. Click on next page. Again, nothing here. So I'll go back to File Set B and back to Steam City Warfare. My action shots need to go in with my shop images. My example of drift can go in the trash along with the yellow fighter symbol. Now, the trash folder doesn't really need to be sorted at all, because we aren't likely to interact with them on the site. But I do want to store my action shots separately. If I had a specific backdrop image, I would also store it in here. The generic backdrop folder is mostly to give you options. So, that's about as organized as I need this, because Steam City Warfare doesn't have a deck of cards or lots of stickers. If I were reorganizing World Builder, I might create a folder specifically for the deck of cards. If I were trying to organize Steam City Defense for the first time, I would make it the way that you've already seen it. This image here, also available, could probably go into old files. Rather than being a shop ad, though that's what it looks like, it's actually a file intended for putting in advertisements inside rules documents for other games.